The final pillar has fallen. Just 48 hours after Max Verstappen lost the World Championship by 2 measly points, Helmut Marko has been forced out of Red Bull Racing. This marks the end of an era, because Helmut Marko was the ruthless architect behind Red Bull's dominance for 20 years. He discovered talents like Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen, but as of this morning, December 10th, 2025, he is gone. The official statement claims it was his choice to step down after a long tenure, but insiders are painting a much uglier picture. This appears less like a retirement party and more like a purge, where the Austrian mastermind was pushed out rather than walking away. The timeline reveals the severity of the situation, since we are just days removed from the heartbreak in Abu Dhabi, where Lando Norris snatched the title from Max in the final laps. This follows the shock firing of Christian Horner back in July, meaning the leadership group that built this team from a party brand into a racing dynasty is now completely wiped out. Horner, Newey, and Marko are all gone, leaving the Red Bull Racing we knew officially dead and replaced by a corporate structure that looks very different from the garage spirit Dietrich Mateschitz built. The gap between what the team wants the public to believe and what actually happened is significant. The press release from Red Bull GmbH was clean, polite, and completely sterile, as it thanked Marko for his major contributions and said he decided to retire at 82 years old. Few sources believe that narrative. Publications like De Limburger and Bild report that this was the final move in a power play, orchestrated by Oliver Minsloff, the CEO who took over after Mateschitz passed away. Minsloff and Marko have been in conflict for months. The tension was palpable in the paddock, rather than just being a rumor, and you could see it in the way they stood apart in the garage or avoided eye contact. Marko was the last man standing who could say no to the corporate executives, and today, they finally found a way to silence him. The timing allegedly stems from 2 major mistakes that sealed his fate. First came the Alex Dunn situation, where reports surfaced that Marko went rogue and signed the young Irish driver to the junior program without getting approval from Minsloff or the new team principal Laurent Mekies. He sent the contract by mail, and when the higher-ups found out, they were furious and had to pay hundreds of thousands to cancel the deal. That is embarrassing for a billion-dollar company. Then came the Qatar Grand Prix controversy, where Marko went on live television and suggested that Mercedes rookie Kimi Antonelli deliberately let Lando Norris pass him to hurt Max's title chances. It was a wild accusation that caused a PR nightmare, and Minsloff reportedly decided the liability outweighed the legacy. This firing is directly connected to the events on the track last Sunday. The 2025 season will go down as the biggest collapse in Red Bull's history, because Max Verstappen had the championship secured early on. He won 7 races and built a massive lead before the car stopped developing and the strategy calls became sloppy, while Lando Norris kept closing the gap. Losing the title by 2 points, which is the difference of a single overtake, broke something inside the team. Marko admitted he was deeply affected by the loss, but the shareholders viewed it as proof that the current methods were failing. Finishing third in the constructors' standings behind McLaren and Mercedes represents a financial failure rather than just a sporting one. They needed a scapegoat, and the 82-year-old advisor was the easiest target. Understanding today's news requires looking back at the departure of Christian Horner in July. That moment shifted the balance of power permanently. For 20 years, Horner and Marko were the ruthless duo that ran the show, fighting each other at times, but always protecting the team from outside interference. Marko became isolated once Horner was gone because he was an advisor with no team principal to back him up against the corporate board. Mekies is a company man who was unlikely to fight Minsloff to save Marko, leaving the Austrian completely exposed. The firewall that protected the racing team from the energy drink company is gone, and the corporate takeover is now total. The impact on Max Verstappen is the most critical aspect for the fans, because he is devastated. He is losing both a boss and a second father. Since Marko plucked Max from Formula 3 as a teenager and put him in an F1 car before he even had a driver's license. Everyone called it crazy, but Marko knew the potential, and their bond became the strongest in the paddock. After the news broke, Max released a short statement saying he was forever grateful for Marko's belief in him. Privately, he must be reeling after losing the title in a painful way, and now seeing the one person who always supported him being shown the door. It leaves Max alone, surrounded by management he didn't choose and doesn't trust. The most pressing question concerns whether Max is free to leave. The Marko clause in Verstappen's contract stated that if Helmut Marko left the team, Max could walk away immediately, regardless of how many years were left on his deal. Reports from earlier this year suggested that clause might have been removed or altered during the chaotic renegotiations after Horner's exit, with some insiders claiming Max traded it for a higher salary. However, the moral contract is broken even if the legal one has changed. Max famously said he would not stay without Marko, and now that Red Bull has crossed that line, he may follow through. If he feels the team has betrayed the people who made him a champion, a piece of paper likely won't stop him from looking elsewhere. Ford represents another massive player in this drama that is often overlooked. Red Bull is switching to Ford powertrains for the new 2026 regulations starting in just a few months, and the American giants signed up for stability rather than a civil war. Watching the team implode publicly, with team principals fired and legends sacked, must be making the executives in Detroit very nervous. They need a stable partner to launch their return to F1. The departure of Marko might be an attempt by Minsloff to clean house and present a professional face to Ford before the new era begins. They want a corporate structure that looks like a modern sports franchise, but they might have destroyed the unique spirit that made the team successful. Toto Wolff is likely smiling right now, given that the Mercedes boss has been talking with the Verstappen camp for 2 years while waiting for this moment. Max was spotted talking with Toto after the race in Brazil last month, which seemed like polite conversation at the time, but now resembles a job interview. Mercedes has a vacant seat for 2027 or sooner if they get creative, and Aston Martin is also lurking, with Adrian Newey already designing their 2026 car. A reunion of Max, Newey, and Honda Power at Aston Martin sounds like a dream team. The bond holding Max to Red Bull has dissolved, with Marko gone, and rival teams are ready to capitalize on the situation. This situation involves the dismantling of a dynasty rather than just one man losing his job. History shows that when the core leadership of a dominant F1 team breaks up, the fall is fast and brutal, as seen with Ferrari in the mid-2000s when Brawn and Todt left. We are watching a similar process at Red Bull in real time, as the unique pirate ship culture that Mateschitz created is being erased. The 2026 season has just become highly unpredictable for viewers, because if Red Bull enters the new regulation era distracted by internal politics, they will fail. The car won't be fast enough if the strategy isn't sharp enough, and we might be witnessing the start of a long decline. If Max decides he has had enough, the entire driver market will explode, signaling the potential collapse of the most dominant force in modern racing. The last titan has fallen, and the Red Bull we knew is gone forever. The drink company has finally absorbed the racing team now that Marko is out, Horner is gone, and the title is lost. It seems unlikely that Max will stay after this, and the move to Mercedes is looking more probable by the minute as this chaotic situation unfolds.